You know that specific feeling? Usually it hits around January 2nd or maybe the Monday morning after a really chaotic weekend where you finally decide to get your life together.
Oh, yeah. The big resolution.
Exactly. You buy the gym membership, you download the meditation app with the calm blue interface, you stack the self-help books on the nightstand.
You're all in.
You're all in. You decide, okay, this is it. I'm going to be a better, calmer, more centered person. And there's this subconscious expectation, right? You expect that the moment you make that decision, the clouds are going to part, the lighting is going to soften, and birds will start singing on your shoulder like you're in a Disney movie.
It's the classic montage moment we've been trained to expect. We think the resolution leads immediately, to the reward.
Right.
We think the hard part is just making the decision, and everything after that is just a victory lap.
Exactly. But then, and I feel like this happens every single time, without fail, the exact opposite happens.
It really does.
You try to meditate, and your brain becomes this chaotic war zone of grocery lists and embarrassing memories from third grade. You try to be patient, and suddenly everyone you know becomes incredibly annoying.
Like they're testing you on purpose.
Yes. On purpose. You try to feel spiritual, and you end up feeling completely numb, bored, and frankly, miserable.
And usually that's the moment people quit. They think, well, clearly I'm doing this wrong, or this isn't working for me, or maybe I'm just not wired for this. They interpret all that friction as failure.
Right. But today, we are diving into a text that says, no, you're not doing it wrong. In fact, that misery, that sudden feeling that everything is getting worse, that is the sign that it's actually working.
It is the paradox of progress. I mean, think about it. When you start cleaning a really messy house, it gets dustier and more chaotic before it gets clean.
That's a great way to put it.
The text we're looking at today argues that the soul works the exact same way.
Today, we are unpacking some fascinating and honestly kind of intense excerpts from a text called The Internal Path of Spiritual Purification. We're looking specifically at chapters 9, 10, and 11. And this isn't a text that pulls any punches.
No, it really doesn't. And just to set the stage here, this isn't modern self-help. We aren't talking about manifesting your best life or hacking your flow state in the way we usually hear it today.
Right. This is not a Silicon Valley startup guide.
Not at all. This is deep, old-school Christian mysticism. It deals with what's called the interior life, the rigorous psychological and spiritual mechanics of what they call purification.
And we should probably drop a quick disclaimer here at the top.
Right.
We are analyzing this text. We're looking at its philosophy, its arguments, its whole worldview.
For sure.
We aren't here to preach, and we aren't here to endorse a specific religious doctrine. We are here to see what this specific framework tells us about, the human condition.
I think that's key.
Because whether you believe in the theology or not, the psychological insights here are just razor sharp.
Precisely. Whether you are religious, spiritual, or just interested in the psychology of resilience and how the human mind handles discipline, there's a fascinating roadmap here.
So what's our mission today?
The mission for this deep dive is to unpack how this text suggests we handle three very specific problems. Spiritual dryness, which is that numbness we mentioned. External suffering, so, difficult people and situations. And the wandering mind.
And the aha moment we're hunting for is this really counterintuitive idea that feeling good about your progress is actually a trap.
And that dryness, feeling nothing, or even feeling actively bad, is actually necessary fuel for the journey.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I think the first thing that hits you when you read chapter 9 is this description of hitting a wall. The text calls it the loss of spiritual interest, and it sounds terrifyingly familiar.
Right, and the description is so visceral. It says you decide to die to the outward, to climb higher internally. You cut off the distractions. But instead of peace, you find that any wonderful experiences you used to have just dry up.
It's almost like the tap gets turned off. You go to the well, and it's just bone dry.
Completely. The text lists these symptoms that, if you took them to a modern therapist, might look a lot like depression or severe burnout. It says you become tongue-tied when trying to speak about deep matters.
You can't find the words.
You can't. And you find you can't even think about the goodness of God. It's just blank. There's no emotional resonance at all.
There's that one metaphor that really stuck with me. The heavens become like brass.
It's a powerful image, isn't it?
So powerful.
I mean, brass is hard. It's a metal alloy. It's impenetrable. It reflects everything back at you.
It doesn't let light through.
Not at all. It feels like you're just knocking on a locked door.
Yeah.
And the text says even your own thoughts can no longer comfort you. You're trapped in a room with no windows and no light.
So naturally, if I'm experiencing this, I'm thinking, I've broken it. I've lost the connection. It's over.
Of course. That's a logical conclusion.
But the text introduces a villain here, or at least an antagonist. It talks about the enemy.
Yes. In this particular worldview, there is active spiritual opposition. Now, you can view this metaphorically or literally, but the psychological mechanism it describes is the same.
Okay.
The text argues that when you're in this dry, vulnerable state, the enemy starts injecting things into your mind.
Like what?
Impure thoughts, restlessness, anger, confusion, all the disruptive stuff.
And boredom.
Yeah.
That really stood out to me. The text explicitly mentions the feeling that God's affairs are boring.
That is a very specific psychological tactic described in the source. And think about it. Boredom is the ultimate killer of discipline.
Right, absolutely.
If the practice feels boring, you'll abandon it for something shiny and external. You'll go check your phone. You'll go eat a snack. You'll seek any kind of stimulation.
It's the brain screaming for a dopamine hit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But here's the pivot, and this is so crucial to understanding this whole philosophy. The text isn't saying this is a failure.
It's not.
No. The text argues that this dryness, this inability to feel good, actually brings a cleansing effect.
That feels like a total contradiction. How does feeling bored and restless and ignored cleanse you?
It strips away the attachment to the exterior.
Mm.
Think about it this way. If you pray or meditate and you get a rush of endorphins and peace every single time, you aren't necessarily casting growth. You're chasing the endorphins. You're chasing the feeling. You're basically a spiritual hedonist.
You're addicted to the spiritual high. You're just using the practice as a drug.
Precisely. So when the high is removed, when the heavens are brass, you are left with nothing but your naked will.
Do you stay? Do you persist?
Exactly. The text says this state increases your sense of unworthiness. It makes you realize that without that external zap of good feelings, you are actually, well, you're quite empty.
Which sounds incredibly harsh, but I guess that's the point. It's humbling. It forces you to look at yourself without the rose-colored glasses of a spiritual experience.
It's deconstruction. It's stripping things down to the studs. And that leads us to the Jonah metaphor.
Oh, right. Jonah and the whale. Most of us know the Sunday school version. Big fish, guy gets swallowed. The text uses it in a very specific way here.
It does. It refers to the part of the story where the storm is raging, the ship is sinking, and the sailors realize they have to throw Jonah overboard to calm the sea.
Okay.
In this text, Jonah represents yourself, your ego, your meanness, the part of you that is heavy and is causing the storm in the first place.
The part of you that's clinging to control and making a mess of things?
Correct. But here is the catch, and this is the real bind the text places you in. You can't throw your own Jonah overboard.
Why not? Why can't I just decide to be less selfish?
Because you are Jonah. The ego cannot remove the ego. It's like trying to lift yourself up by your own bootstraps, or a surgeon trying to operate on their own brain.
It's a paradox.
A total paradox. The text is very clear on this point. Only the Lord can throw your Jonah into the sea.
So all the struggle, the self-denial, the trying really hard to be a good person.
The source says it is useless without this divine intervention. You can do nothing. And the dryness is the mechanism that teaches you that dependency. It forces you to stop trying to fix yourself and just let go. It shows you the absolute limits of your own power.
It's a terrified surrender. It's realizing you aren't the captain of the ship. You're the cargo that needs to be tossed.
It's total dependency. The text says everything is in his hands, not in yours. And that realization only really comes when your hands are empty. If your hands are full of insights and good vibes, you don't realize how dependent you actually are. You think you're doing it all yourself.
Okay, so Chapter 9 is about the internal landscape completely drying up. That's the battle inside your own head. But then Chapter 10 opens the door to the outside world, and honestly, it gets even more challenging.
It really does.
This is the section on the file.
The file of circumstances. This is where we talk about why other people are so difficult.
I love this metaphor, even though it's painful. So, the text describes human nature as base, proud, ambitious, and just full of judgment. It pulls no punches about what we're like when left to our own devices.
Not at all.
And it says if we were just left to ourselves, that nature would destroy us. So we need a cure.
And the cure, according to this text, is unfavorable encounters.
Basically, bad days and mean people.
Precisely. The text uses the image of a powerful file, like a metal file a blacksmith uses to smooth down rough iron. God uses difficult people, unfair circumstances, even humiliation, as a tool to scrub away vanity and self-love.
So the friction is the point.
The friction creates heat, but it also smooths the surface. It's a refining process.
It explicitly says the file is used to scrub away logic and opinion, which I found really interesting. We usually think of logic as a good thing. We pride ourselves on being logical people.
But in this context, logic is often the defense mechanism of the ego. It's the voice that says, I am right, they are wrong, and here are the 10 reasons why.
Okay, I see that.
That defense reinforces the self. It builds a wall around you. The file is meant to grind that wall down. It forces you into a space where you can't just rely on being right all the time.
So let's talk about the neighbor. This is the part that I think listeners will find most relatable and probably the most difficult. What happens when someone treats you with actual malice? Unfairly. They lie about you, or they attack you, or they betray you.
The natural human reaction is to say, this is wrong, this is not from God, this is just a bad person doing a bad thing.
Right. I need to stop this. I need to defend myself. I need to fix this injustice.
But the source text instructs you. Do not say this is not from God. And it introduces what I would call the dual aspect of injury.
Okay, break that down for us. This seems absolutely critical.
Okay, so aspect one is the sinner's side. The person hurting you is acting out of malice or greed or anger. They are sinning. In the text view, they are displeasing God. That is their baggage. That is their moral failure.
Okay, so we aren't gaslighting ourselves into thinking they are doing something good. We're not pretending the bad thing is good.
No, not at all. Evil is still evil in that sense. But aspect two is the victim's side, your side. The text argues that while God does not cause the person to sin, he permits the injury to reach you for your benefit.
That is a tough pill to swallow. It sounds almost masochistic.
It is the toughest pill in the whole text, I think. It means looking at a real injustice and seeing it as a customized lesson plan just for you. The text says, God permits the injury for your edification. It reframes the suffering from a meaningless accident to a purposeful tool.
And they use the ultimate example for this, right? The Pilate example.
Yes, Pontius Pilate. Historically, he is the villain in the Christian narrative. He condemns Jesus to death. It's an act of treachery and political cowardice.
But the analysis here completely flips it.
Right, because without Pilate's treachery, there is no crucifixion. Without the crucifixion, in this specific theology, there is no redemption for humanity. So Pilate's evil was used as an instrument for the ultimate good.
So the text is asking you to view your annoying boss or your difficult family member as a mini Pilate.
In a way, yes. They're playing a role in your purification. They're the villain in the scene, but the scene itself is necessary for the movie to work.
It illustrates using others' faults for our edification. It really takes the power away from them, doesn't it?
It does. They think they are hurting you, but actually they are helping you file down your ego.
So practically speaking, how are we supposed to react? Because if I'm in a meeting and someone throws me under the bus, my first instinct is to fight back, to use logic, to explain why they're wrong, to get defensive.
And the text gives a very strict rule for this. Don't fight.
Don't fight, like, at all. Just sit there and take it.
Do not use reason or logic to debate the enemy. The text argues that the moment you engage in that debate, even internally, even just in your own head while you're driving home, replaying the argument.
Which we all do.
Which we all do. The moment you do that, you have lost your peace. You've stepped into the ring. You've given the ego exactly what it wants. A battle to win.
So what's the alternative? Being a doormat. Just letting people walk all over you.
No, and this is a really subtle but important distinction. It's not about submission out of weakness. It's about a psychological tactic of despising the attack.
Despising it? That sounds kind of aggressive.
It's in the older sense of the word. It means treating it as unworthy of your reaction. Act as if you don't even see the enemy. Remain in peace and composure.
Okay.
If you react with anger or defense, you validate the attack. You give it power. But if you remain composed, the text says you despise the enemy's efforts. You render them completely ineffective. It's like you look right through them.
It's like that old saying, living well is the best revenge. But in this case, it's staying peaceful is the ultimate shield.
And it notes a real paradox here. You develop a greater capacity to love and trust during times of suffering than you ever do in times of ease.
Why is that?
The suffering expands the container of the soul. When life is easy, you're shallow. The water's not deep. When life is hard, you have to deepen to survive.
Which brings us to chapter 11, and this moves us from the external attacks back to the internal world. And it starts with a quote that I absolutely love.
It's a great one.
When there is not a single temptation, that is the greatest temptation.
It's a brilliant warning against the danger of security. It's the spiritual equivalent of the line in a horror movie. It's quiet. Too quiet.
So what does that mean exactly?
It means that if everything feels calm, easy, and you feel like you're a good spiritual person, you are likely completely oblivious to your true state. You've been lulled to sleep.
You're comfortable, so you aren't growing. You're just stagnant.
Or worse, maybe the enemy isn't bothering with you because he already has you where he wants you. Why attack a city that has already surrendered his keys?
That's a chilling thought.
The text describes the internal state of most people, even those who think they're doing well, as scattered.
The scattered self. I think we can all identify with that one.
Oh, yes. The mind is just jumping from one thing to another. Active, busy, anxious. It's like a ream full of energetic puppies just destroying all the furniture. It's the monkey mind concept.
So the solution described in the text is recall. But again, the text is very, very specific about how not to do this.
Right. Recall sounds like mental effort. It sounds like grabbing those puppies and trying to shove them back in the box. But the source says, not through imagination, not through logic, and definitely not by trying hard.
Because trying hard is just more ego, isn't it? It's the self trying to control the self again.
Exactly. Trying is just another form of tension. The method it describes is resting in love.
What does that look like?
It describes simply returning to the deepest secret place without anxiety. It's a gentle movement. If your mind wanders off, you don't beat yourself up. You just gently, quietly turn back.
It's like correcting your steering on the highway. You don't scream at the car every time you drift an inch. You just nudge the wheel back to center.
That's a perfect analogy. But there is a trap here that I think is so relevant to our culture of achievement. The text warns against spiritual ambition.
This is one of the most insightful parts of the text for me. We are so used to goal setting. I want to be the best mediator. I want to be a saint. I want to be great in God's kingdom.
And the text says, beware of that. That is a danger.
Why? Isn't it good to want to be good?
Because that ambition feeds the ego just as much as wanting to be a rich CEO feeds the ego. It's just spiritualized ego. It's vanity wearing a robe. The text argues that struggling with a wandering mind in silence, feeling like a total failure but staying put, is more valuable in God's eyes than successful piety that is driven by ambition.
Because the failure kills the pride.
Yes. The text basically says God prefers the stumbling, humble soul over the successful, proud one. The constant stumbling effectively keeps you dependent and humble.
There's the Jacob metaphor here, too. Jacob wrestling with the angel.
Yeah. It's a story of pure persistence. Jacob wrestled all night long until daybreak. He didn't win quickly. He was injured in the process. His hip was put out of joint. But he did not let go.
And the lesson here is?
The lesson from the source is that even if your mind wanders 1,000 times in 20 minutes, the act of bringing it back, that is the prayer.
That's a huge relief. I think people think the prayer is the moment of pure silence, but the text is saying the prayer is the wrestling match itself.
The wrestling is the work. The text uses sun imagery here. You wrestle in the dark until the Lord becomes the rising sun in the spirit. You have to wait for the dawn. You can't manufacture it with a flashlight. You have to endure the night.
This leads us perfectly into our last big section, which is about the nature of true prayer. Because if prayer is wrestling, and if it's often dry and boring, then we have to completely redefine what success looks like.
We do. We have to throw out the old scorecard completely. The text explicitly addresses dry prayer. It says, if you leave your time of reflection feeling dry and empty, do not think you have failed.
But we want to feel good. We want the insight. We want the download from the universe.
And that, according to the text, is the leak in faith. Thinking that prayer is about enjoying light or insight is a fundamental error in this worldview.
Why?
It treats God as a vending machine for experiences. You put in the coin of silence, you expect the candy bar of peace to drop out.
So what is the text's definition of true prayer then, if it's not about feeling good?
It is faith and waiting, pure and simple. It is not about intellectual understanding. The text makes a really sharp distinction between understanding spiritual things with your brain and actually possessing spiritual virtue.
You can know the entire menu, but that doesn't mean you've eaten the food.
Precisely. You could be a theologian who understands every doctrine, every nuance of Greek and Hebrew, and still have a scattered, proud soul. True prayer is the act of sitting in the chair in faith, regardless of how it feels. It is the act of showing up, especially when you don't want to.
And to drive this home, the text uses a final analogy that I found really, really helpful, the comparison between the hired hand and the sun.
It's a beautiful economic metaphor that perfectly encapsulates the shift in mindset that's required.
So break it down for us. Who is the hired hand?
The hired hand works for a daily wage. They put in their hours, and at the end of the day, they want their payment.
Okay.
In spiritual terms, this is the person who prays and expects an immediate reward, a feeling of peace, an answered prayer, a sense of holiness.
Immediate gratification. It's a transactional relationship.
Exactly. I did the work, now give me the feeling. And if they don't get the wage, they quit, or they strike, or they complain. But the son
is different.
The son works in his father's field all year long. He gets no daily wage. He might work even harder than the hired hand. But at the end of the year, or the end of his life, the son shares in the entire fortune. He isn't working for a wage. He is working because it is his father's field. He's working for the family interest, not his personal, immediate interest.
So the takeaway is about shifting your motivation from, what do I get out of this right now, to, I'm doing this for a larger purpose that I might not even feel day to day.
Exactly. Working for God's glory rather than personal interest. And personal interest includes those spiritual highs. You stop asking, did I feel good during meditation today? You start asking, did I show up and serve the practice today?
It really reframes the boredom, doesn't it? If you're a hired hand, boredom means you aren't getting paid. It's a ripoff.
Right.
If you're a son, boredom is just part of managing the estate. It's part of the job.
It's just a winter season on the farm. It's cold. Nothing is growing above ground. But you still have to go out and check the fences. You keep working because you own the outcome in the long run.
So let's try to synthesize all of this. We've covered a lot of ground, from the heavens is brass to the file of difficult neighbors to the wrestling match of the wandering mind.
If we look at the trajectory of it all, it's a journey of subtraction.
Subtraction? How so?
Yes. We usually think of self-improvement as addition. I add skills, I add calmness, I add insights, I add good habits.
Right.
This text argues that the internal path is a process of removal, of subtraction.
Removing the expectation of feeling good.
Removing the Jonah, your ego. Removing the need for logical defense against your enemies. Removing the ambition to be great. Removing the demand for a daily wage of good feelings.
And what's left when you take all that away?
Room. Just room. Room for the divine. The text argues that we are so full of you, your opinions, your desires, your need for constant stimulation, that there is no space for anything else to enter.
So the dryness, the suffering, the silence, it's all just clearing out the furniture.
It's clearing out the furniture to make an empty room where the sun can finally rise.
That's the hope, anyway.
That's the hope.
This has been a heavy one, but in a good way. It really challenges that modern instinct to just fix everything instantly with a life hack.
It tells us that the fixing often looks and feels like breaking first, and that the breaking isn't something to fear, it's the beginning of the real work.
I want to leave our listeners with a thought to carry with them this week. We talked a lot about the logic trap, how we defend ourselves against unfairness with our reason.
The file.
Right, the file. So here is the provocative thought for the week. The text suggests that our logical and reasonable defenses are actually traps that keep our ego alive and well. So try this as a thought experiment. If you start defending yourself with logic for 1 week, just internally, you don't have to do anything outwardly, what parts of your identity would feel the most threatened? And what does that say about where your true security actually lies?
That is a scary experiment. But usually the scary experiments are the ones worth doing.
It is, but that's what these
For more spiritual resources, visit lokaken.ai.